بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Welcome back to all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of your good deeds. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you to continue all of those blessings after the month of Ramadan, Shawwal, for the rest of your lives. Allahumma ameen. Tonight, bid'nillah ta'ala, we'll take a few questions if Allah Azza wa Jal gives us the tawfiq to do so. So if anybody has any question, feel free to ask. And with our limited knowledge and understanding, we'll try our best to answer them to help serve the global worldwide Islamic community. Barakallahu fikum. Fadl Ali. Wa salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
One who's praying qasr, he's praying 2 rak'ahs for Isha, and he joins and he prays behind the imam who's praying Maghrib. And on the third rak'ah, does the one who's praying 2 rak'ah, his intention is to pray 2 rak'ah. Does he stay down while the imam goes up for the third rak'ah?
Understood. Question is regarding one who's making qasr, he's traveling, making qasr. He comes behind the imam who's a resident, or even if the imam is traveling, Maghrib is 3, no matter what. Do you missed the rak'ah, correct?
No. He started with the imam. The imam made announcements. We're praying Maghrib, and
So he started from the beginning?
yeah.
He has to make 3, no matter what. You have to make 3. Maghrib cannot be shortened. That's number one, obviously. And secondly, even if it was Isha, he's making Isha, but the imam is making Maghrib? Okay. So the imam is making Maghrib, and the musafir is making Isha. Okay. So when did the musafir begin with the muqim? From the beginning?
Yeah.
He has to make 4. Yes, he doesn't sit, he doesn't wait. No, he has to make 4 rak'ah behind the imam. He has to follow the imam completely as if he was muqim. Period. Wallahu alam. Hamza?
Barakallahu fiqh, ya Sheikh. What's your rule on comparing things to heaven?
Comparing things to heaven, such as?
Yani, a nice car.
So you say, I'm in heaven?
Yeah.
طيب. على كل حال, somebody may compare something to heaven, says, this cake was so good, I was in heaven. It was like heaven. Or, you don't know the hell I had to go through to get here. The traffic was, whatever the case may be. على كل, a Muslim who says those things, he doesn't mean that. That's not his intention. As they say, a figure of speech. All right? Even though there are times in which the word heaven and hell, or Jannah wa nar, heaven and a fire, can be used. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he explains this with regards to Surah Al-Infitar, that the abrar will be in al-na'im, wa inna al-fujjara lafi jahim. And he talks about how that's in this world, before the hereafter. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Fadal.
Barakallahu fiqh, ya Sheikh. Let's say if you have a jacket and you have a Quran in your pocket or yani, thobe, and when you go to sujood, it usually jogs on the floor, or your coat is on the floor. What's your ruling on the Quran being in that pocket?
Having a mushaf in your thobe or your jacket pocket, you make sujood, and the weight of the mushaf falls down to the ground like the rest of your clothes in the sujood. What's the ruling on that? If you know you're going to make the sajda, and if you know that the pocket is loose and it's going to droop down and fall down, put the mushaf in a safer pocket. A pocket that won't fall down, that won't, have any chance of being disrespected or anything like that. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Ali? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
What's the most correct view in praying in a hotel in Mecca and praying with the Jama'ah, with the congregation that's going on
In the hotel.
Yeah.
Okay, so you pray in the Jama'ah in the hotel?
In the
Or you pray in the Jama'ah?
the imam in the haram.
Understood. What is the ruling on that? So a person's in Mecca, he's in his hotel room, and he's making the Jama'ah behind.
The imam, but the masjid in the hotel.
Yes, I understand the Musalla in the hotel. For example, the Zamzam Towers.
Yeah.
You have the musalla, the big gigantic window. You see everyone, so on and so forth. What's the ruling on that? Tell you, inshallah ta'ala, if it's a necessity, it's obviously we know how crowded it is there, extremely crowded. We know the restrictions that they make on the number of people that are allowed into the masjid. So the unfortunate reality is you don't have time to get into the masjid. And the unfortunate reality is sometimes if you want to pray in the masjid in Medina or Mecca, you have to be there for all 5 prayers, as if you're making the i'tikaf. You go there for this prayer, you can't leave because it's the time, the crowd, so on and so forth. So these difficulties and these hardships, and of course the rulings of rows being connected outside of the actual place where the imam is. There's going to be walls. In the courtyard, there are walls. There are people praying, so on and so forth. So if it's a necessity, then that's one thing. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Wa yakum. From online.
HH, Burnsville, MN, how to pray when headed west on an airplane from, let's say, the Middle East, and it's day the whole trip. What time to pray and how to know times of prayers.
Repeat the question, please.
How to pray when headed west on an airplane.
How to pray when headed west on an airplane. So someone is going, for example,
The Middle East.
Minnesota, he says west, not east. So he'll be heading towards California, correct? If it's the East Coast, Midwest, west. Going to China, whatever, they going that way. Is the earth round or flat? It's a long discussion in itself. Al-Muhim, says headed what? West, not east. Keep going.
On an airplane, let's say the Middle East.
How are you going in the Middle East heading west? I don't understand. From America or from another country? Obviously, if you're in China, then, you know, or if you're in, Iraq or Persia or something like that, that's one thing.
Let's say you're headed west on an airplane.
That's clear, but from which country?
Let's say the Middle East.
So you're in the Middle East and you're heading west. Coming to America, for example.
Yeah.
So repeat the question. Let's listen to what the questioner says.
How to pray when headed west.
Heading west, okay? Further.
Headed west on an airplane from, let's say, the Middle East.
Okay, not heading towards the Middle East, going west. Correct? Okay, perfect. All right, complete the question.
And it's day the whole trip. What time to pray and how to know the time?
It's day the whole trip. So basically, a person's heading west from the Middle East, he's going backwards in time. Simple enough. Time is going what? Backwards. So if you're in the Middle East, you pray whatever prayer is upon you there. Whatever that prayer may be. Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, daytime, whatever that prayer may be. And as you travel, regardless of the amount of hours and what prayer times, those time zones, there are only 5 prayers in a day. So if you land in the United States and it's still sunlight, Maghrib has not come in yet, regardless of how many hours it's been, the sun hasn't set, then there are only 5 prayers that are obligatory during the day. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
And as from Dhaka, Bangladesh, the Imam says Allahu Akbar, you instead of Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbaru instead of Allahu Akbar. Does this have any evidence to say this?
The Imam says Allahu Akbaru instead of just Allahu Akbar in the prayer.
I guess so. No.
F1? At the start of the prayer. Takbiratul Ihram. So he says Allahu Akbaru. Does it have any what?
Evidence
Does it have any evidence
to say that.
to say this? I don't know what understanding he's of, but it's unanimously known in the Muslim world just to say Allahu Akbar if you're going to make that statement. Okay? Wallahu ta'ala alam.
AKST Lewis MO. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mufti kayf al-hal? Barakallahu feekum. Sometimes at the masjid I see people moving spots when praying. Is that required when making sunnah prayer followed by an obligatory one?
Tayyib. Questions come from St. Louis, Missouri regarding moving your spot for the fard, for the nafil, so on and so forth. Barakallahu feek. It isn't mandatory. If you make the fard prayer and you wish to make the sunnah prayer, then we know the sunnah is to make sure that they aren't connected. That takes place by speaking. That takes place to tasbih, the dhikr, so on and so forth. And if a person wanted to add an extra layer of protection, he would get up and move to another place. But it isn't obligatory. It's not binding. As long as you sit down after the fard or the sunnah before the fard, then you give it some time in which the prayer isn't connected to the prayer. The fard doesn't connect it right into the nafila like many people do. Okay, and then obviously some people they move to another place for that reason, and some people they also move to another place, seeking another spot, another place in the masjid, more footsteps, the place bearing witness and testifying for them on the day of judgment. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
MJ Cincinnati, Ohio. How do you properly sharpen a katana on a whetstone?
How to properly sharpen a katana on a whetstone. You got to speak to a real sword master for that. Okay, I know just a little with regards to these things, but I think a big part of it is the nature of the stone. All stones aren't the same. So, for argument's sake, you have an official sharpening stone, a whetstone, a stone for whetting. Then, obviously, the angle of your blade, whether it's small or large, or even a portion of a larger blade. And obviously, certain stones require for you to use liquid, whether it be water or whether it be certain liquids that come with the actual wetting stone. All right. So, what I would say, number one, first and foremost, is safety. Make sure that you have a good, firm, dry grip on a safe part of the handle or the blade. Okay? Whether you're wrapping the blade or whether it's a handle will make safety, that's first and foremost. And for sure, it's easier said than done. It's very easy to cut yourself with a knife, let alone with a katana. Very, very easy. So that's first and foremost. And be very mindful of your fingers and your fingertips. They're extremely valuable. Allah tells us about the fingertips in the Quran and several ayat. Okay, the delicacy of the fingers, resurrection. Huh? Allah talks about striking them what? Kulla banan, the hands, the fingers, the extremities, the digits. So once you get you injure your fingertips, you cut, you lose it, is a big mushkila. So safety is first and foremost. Second of all, that needs an explanatory video or tutorial with regards to handling, angle, wetness or dry, and the nature of the sharpening. The nature of the sharpening. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
LA, Birmingham, UK. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi Sheikh. Is it halal to work for Amazon delivering parcels which may or may not contain haram as you cannot see the content?
Questions regarding working for Amazon. Delivering things which may or may not be halal, haram. You can't, determine what's inside the package. Bidnillahi ta'ala, take the job. Put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask Allah to protect you and seek Allah's forgiveness. Wallahu alam.
NH from Dhaka, Bangladesh. The Imam of my local masjid make errors, always in prayer recitation. Is it okay to pray the salah at home instead of the Jamaat?
The Imam makes many mistakes in the salah. Is it okay to pray at home instead? No, go to the masjid. Go to the masjid, give advice to the Imam. Make dua for him and maybe give him advice. Point out some errors of others with respect. Maybe he'll change. That's your duty. Okay? And if he's stubborn or he's full of pride or you don't know what you're talking about, etc., you may have to speak to someone else. But don't stay away from the masjid and the jama'ah. Wallahu alam.
MA Hyderabad, India. How to increase ghira for Palestine. How to become someone who cries and makes dua for Palestine.
Questions regarding how to have more concern, sympathy, empathy, anger, jealousy, rage, quite honestly speaking, for what has happened and what is happening in Palestine, crying for Palestine, so on and so forth. Well, first and foremost, knowledge. You have to realize that what's happening in Palestine to your Muslim brothers is mandatory for you to do something. Obviously, you're miles away. And obviously, the sad reality is the Zionist state, for many years now, decades, they've placed themselves in a position of strength and struck their enemies and opponents at a time of weakness. And that's well known, politically, economically, militarily, and the list goes on. The list goes on, all right? Allah al-Musta'an. And of course, we know Allah is the most powerful, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when He wants something, it is. But we're just talking about us, the human beings, the slaves, the servants. They've placed themselves in a position of strength, and they've dealt with people that are in a position of weakness from many aspects. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. So it's not but so much you can physically do. That's the point. That's the moral of the story. Obviously, you can speak out against it. You can raise the consciousness, and you, of course, you can hate it in your heart. So first and foremost is the knowledge that it's obligatory to have some type of feeling. If nothing moves you on the inside, nothing is moving, then something is seriously off with your iman. To see a holy, sacred place, sacred land like that being disrespected, being desecrated, to see all of those thousands of Muslims being slaughtered and killed like in that manner is very disturbing. So my first piece of advice to you is to realize that it's obligatory, and you have to fight yourself for that until it comes. And of course, once you fight yourself for that, and you ask Allah to increase you for love of your brothers and the help of your brothers, inshallah it will come. But don't go to the extreme like anything else. And of course, that's a long saga, a long discussion, talking about, what's been happening. How many months has been now? Half a year? Remember? It's like COVID, right? Remember back then, the masks? That's how October, it was such a long time ago. Like when it first jumped off, the du'as, kunut, witr, boycotting Starbucks, the Muslim countries, Arab countries, blah, 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 blah. Now it's just like, aywa, Allah al-Musta'an, yani. Allah al-Musta'an, Allah al-Musta'an. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. May Allah make it easy for us all. It's a rough discussion to have. It's been a rough discussion then, when the body count was in what? 10,000. Now it's like what, 32, 33? Allah al-Musta'an.
AM Morristown NJ. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. WRB, Mufti, may Allah bless you and increase you. Beneficial knowledge. How to stay steadfast after Ramadan. Does return to sins mean my Ramadan wasn't accepted? Barakallah feekum.
Wa fikum barakallah. How to stay steadfast after Ramadan? Does returning to sins mean that my Ramadan wasn't accepted? So on and so forth. Well, al-istiqamah in general. You have to learn about al-istiqamah. First and foremost, you don't have a choice. Secondly, the virtue of istiqamah. What Allah will give you if you're mustaqim. And obviously those benefits, those blessings, those bounties, those virtues, that should be 24/7. Allah's love, Allah's protection, the protection of the angels, all right? Relief and protection from grief and sorrow and worry. All of the virtues of istiqamah apply in Ramadan and outside of Ramadan. Thirdly is shyness. You have to be shy. You have to be embarrassed in front of Allah. How can I keep doing this stuff even though I stayed away from it? Even though I had the ability to stay away from it? Even though I practice self-control, I practice patience, now I just, you have to be shy. And you have to be embarrassed. All right, last but not least, does it mean that your Ramadan wasn't accepted? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's not a good sign, but it isn't necessarily a conclusive proof that your Ramadan was not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there may be a sin a believer may be struggling with, period. Unfortunately, a chronic sin that a person has just been struggling with and is struggling with for years. And they try their best to, lock it up in Ramadan out of respect. They may slip up, they may not. And the sad reality is they may lose control, drinking alcohol. I know drinking alcohol is haram. I was exposed to drinking alcohol when I was 12 years old. I saw my father shot in the head in front of me. I was traumatized, etc., etc. I have a drinking problem. I know it's haram. I hate it. I've been fighting in and out of rehab. It's hard. But at least for Ramadan, I know I can't do it no matter what. But at the end of those 30 days, it's hard. I can't stay away from it that long. I have to go back to it. Doesn't mean that the Ramadan wasn't accepted. Wallahu alam.
NH Dhaka, Bangladesh. Please make dua for my childhood friend. He passed away. We're all on the way to bury him right now. Bismillah, jazakumul khair, all disciples.
Barakallahu fikum to the disciples in the lands of Bangladesh. All of them, whoever they may be. May Allah make it easy upon your loved one. Ameen. May Allah grant him or her firmness in the grave and protection from the punishment in the grave. Ameen.
ZH Kenya, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi
City, state.
MG Stone Mountain GA. Assalamu alaikum to the HD crew and the trenches on the vanway.
Barakallahu fikum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you from those insects. Ameen. Faddo.
That's why Miami, Florida, FL. If I have two separate things I want to make Toba for, do I need to make separate Tobas for each one, or can I make Toba for multiple things at once?
Two sins a person is making Toba from. Can he do double Toba, or does it have to be so on and so forth? It depends. If you're making Toba a prayer, that's one thing. You're making dua, verbal Toba, that's another thing. You make dua, you make Toba for all things in general. And if it's something specific, you have that specific niyyah in your heart for whatever those sins may be. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
NH Dhaka, Bangladesh. He does it through every single movement.
Next question.
NH. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh, MAPA, Sheikh, if someone apostated and stole a big amount while they weren't Muslim, but they came back to Islam, alhamdulillah, do they have to return it for this repentance to be accepted?
Return
To
what?
non-Muslim country.
Say that again.
Sheikh, if someone apostated and stole a big amount while they weren't Muslim, but they came back to Islam, alhamdulillah, do they have to return for this repentance?
Understood. Try their best to return those stolen properties if possible. Wallahu alam.
AR from Brooklyn, NY. If a husband will do the dhabiha after Eid al-Adha, does the wife as well as the husband are not permitted to cut their nails and hair?
If the husband is doing it on behalf of the family members, inshallah, that should be enough. Just him staying away from that. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
This one doesn't have the name. That's it.
Khairan, inshallah. If there's no other questions, jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma hamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Thank you very much for watching.